Welcome back everyone to GGN. This is part 4, the final part for today for Friday, August 16th, 2013. I'm ready to go. I'm just basically leftover articles, including eugenics and that I have leftover, conspiracy news, educational news. 4 coffees a day may mean early death. Women drinkers have double the normal mortality rate. Drinking several cups of coffee a day might cut your risk of suicide, but it might just kill you anyways. New study found heavy coffee drinking, that's 28 cups a week, or 4 per day, with a higher death risk in those under 55. So here, the study also found heavy coffee drinkers were more likely to smoke and had less healthy lungs and hearts. Alright, then we have this, I just want to throw it out there, 20 most caffeinated cities. I didn't know this, but it says here that more than half of Americans over 18 are daily coffee drinkers. It says here that coffee is by no means America's only caffeine injection system, just the most popular. Is from energy drinks like Red Bull to candy bars, Americans consume 280 milligrams of caffeine each day, making it America's favorite stimulant. U.S. sees rise in extreme obesity for adults and children. Obesity levels among adults appearing to be holding steady across the U.S., adding to recent evidence that the growth rate for the U.S. waistlines is slowing. But within the holding pattern, there's a dramatic rise in extreme obesity among children and adults. Say it's about a 350% increase. They're also nearly twice as high for women as for men, and were also particularly high for Hispanic boys and black girls. The highest in the South and Midwest. It says in addition to that, rates were higher for people with less education and lower incomes. This obesity's death toll could be higher than believes a study. It said 4 times higher than has been widely believed. It says here that it could reverse the steady trend of lengthening lifespans for a generation of younger Americans. 18.2% of premature deaths in the U.S. between 1986 and 2006 were associated with excess body mass. Doctors worry about all these big babies. Along with obesity, birth weight is on the rise. Like people, babies are getting bigger around the world, and experts say those cute, chubby newborns pose health risks to themselves and to their moms. They say C-section rates have risen 20% in '96 to 31% in 2009, partly because of oversized babies. Pepsi-flavored Cheetos now exist, it says, but sadly only in Japan. McDonald's chicken McNuggets found to contain mysterious fibers, hair-like structures. So, Natural News Forensic Food Lab posts research photos online. They contain strange fibers that some people might say even resemble the so-called Morgellons. We found dark black hair-like structures sticking out of the nugget mass, as well as light blue shaped structures with attached tail-like hairs or fibers. And as far as some of the photos go, just kind of scroll through them. So they're even talking about green algae in there as well. Yeah, there you go. King of beers among ER patients, says Budweiser, or what is Budweiser. Of injury-related visits involving booze, it was most cited as the booze involved. It apparently reigns supreme in an area it may not want to rule over. In a pilot study of 105 people who are seeking treatment at Baltimore ER, they had been drinking 15% named Budweiser as the alcoholic beverage they had consumed. So I guess they have a market share of 9%. Others included Steel Reserve, Colt 45, Bud Ice, King Cobra. It says here 46% named one of those beverages, though together they have just 2.4% market share. It says vodka, gin, brandy, and cognac were also overrepresented. The study was too small to produce definite conclusions. It was conducted in a mainly black neighborhood. So the big takeaway is that such a study is actually doable, says the director. And what's interesting is you heard that thing about formaldehyde in Budweiser, and then there's been a lot of stuff out there that basically say that they don't do that anymore. But something I did find interesting was that it still actually goes on in Asia, but then there's you could actually see it on some of the cans that say formaldehyde free. But Budweiser and them, they used to actually do that, and then they stopped it for, quote, health reasons, or they, quote, stopped it for health reasons. But they kept putting something in there, or basically for the taste. So people got used to the taste of formaldehyde, so they did put whatever they could in there to make it taste like formaldehyde still, which is interesting because I remember when I drank Budweiser a couple times, it did have kind of a weird taste. So I'm not saying it's formaldehyde, but that's funny that people would want that. But, you know, you have to think about it this way. Oh, yeah, we don't put formaldehyde in it, but we know that they put BPA and they line the cans. We know that they use local tap water, which means fluoride, and probably GMO for the hops and all that. But what did they replace it with? You know, that's the thing. They probably replaced it with something even worse than formaldehyde. The forgotten Cold War plan that put a ring of copper around the Earth. So during the summer of 1963, the Earth looked a tiny bit like Saturn. So it goes on here, and it says here that the U.S. launched a 500 million whisker-thin copper wires into orbit in an attempt to install a ring around the Earth. It was called Project Westford and was perfect, odd example of Cold War paranoia. So in the military mentality at work in America's early space program, the Air Force and DoD envisioned that this ring would be the largest radio antenna in human history. Its goal is to protect the nation's long-range communications in the event of an attack from the increasingly belligerent Soviet Union. So even in that same year, the Harvard Crimson quoted British radio astronomer as saying the damage lies not with the experiment alone, but with the attitude of mind which makes it possible without international agreement and safeguards, which is why they do it now. Recent military operations in space had given the U.S. a reckless reputation following the 1962 high-altitude nuclear test Starfish Prime. This famously bad idea dispersed radiation across the globe, spawning tropical auroras and delivering a debilitating electromagnetic pulse to Hawaiian cities. Speaking of fluoride, Israel joins most of the world in banning water fluoridation. On July 29, 2013, the Supreme Court of Israel ruled that they would or must stop adding fluoride into public water supplies in 1 year following decision on fluoride's potential toxicity to humans by the Israeli health minister. Only 369 million of the world's 7 billion people drink water which is intentionally fluoridated. So the number of people drinking artificially fluoridated water to the percentage of the population, you have 80% in Australia, 95% in Brunei, I don't know where that is, but 70% in Chile, 62% in Guyana, 100% Hong Kong, 100% Irish Republic, 73%, Israel was 70%, Malaysia 75%, so you can go there and check it out. United Kingdom 11%, and United States 64%. In other words, a mere 5% of the world's people drink artificially fluoridated water, and only 3% of Western Europeans have fluoride in their water. So, you know, this is not by mistake. Look at all these countries, 0%, and then the rebellious Irish at 73% of water fluoridation. Spain, right? They were the champions of the Spanish War, which they actually created their own little free, real democracy. They are being fluoridated 11%. Kind of surprised that Greece isn't locked in his body for 12 years, but finally given a voice. There's a man in a vegetative state that can speak thanks to mind-reading computer. A patient believed to be unresponsive was asked to focus on a yes or no response to a set of questions. His brain activity was then captured using functional magnetic imaging. So he was responsive and also found to be aware of his environment, meaning he could maintain coherent thoughts and lead a rich mental life. The new tool measures consciousness. For the first time, it could help treat unresponsive patients with brain injuries. So it says here, introducing the PCI technique that involves measuring the brain's response with magnetic pulse. You're kind of banging on the brain, listening to an echo, explains a neuroscientist. So it goes on here, and it says that it shouldn't be used to determine when to pull the plug. And of course, we have here, theoretically, it could help doctors gauge how effective drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, and brain stimulation procedures are working on particular patients. It's all about behavior modification. That's ultimately what it is. They want to study the brain, how you think, to control that fully, because they don't fully understand, but they have a pretty good grasp of it. New system uses low-power wireless frequencies, a signal to track moving humans. So Wi-Fi signals track humans even behind walls. So it says now we could all thank researchers at MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. So what they're talking about is these signals, Wi-Fi signals, actually do follow you. They said that here as the person moves through the room, his or her distance from the receiver changes, meaning the time it takes for the reflective signal to make its way back to the receiver changes too. Says it could be used for what? Oh, search and rescue to help survivors trapped in rubble, and allow police officers to identify a number of a movement of criminals within a building to avoid walking into an ambush. I thought this was kind of funny. Laser weapons inch closer to the battlefield. So the military aims to turn laser weapons from science fiction into reality for everything from space platforms to Humvees. So, but the funny part is they actually have a facility, an actual DoD facility based solely on directed energy weapons or lasers. So science fiction. August 1st, 2013, Falklands War. UK deployed laser weapons to dazzle enemy pilots. So they deployed laser weapons during the Falkland War in 1982 with Argentina, designed to dazzle the enemy pilots who were attacking British warships. So just it's new. It's down the road. UK fracking firm halts drilling amid protest fears. So, the fracking company has stopped its activities at a drilling site amid protest threats from local residents and anti-fracking campaigners. So, they better be careful because they're going to start treating them like insurgents and terrorists. Ecuador approves oil drilling in Amazon Nature Reserve. Ecuador has decided to go ahead with a major oil exploration in the Amazon Nature Reserve following a failed conservation plan to persuade foreign countries to pay the country not to drill for oil. So it came to the decision after the international community had only donated $13 million of the $30.6 billion sought for the country to not exploit an area of the national park. He says the world has failed us, blaming the great hypocrisy of nations who emit most of the world's greenhouse gases. He says it was one of the hardest decisions he's had to make in his career or whatever. He says the national park is home to several nomadic Indian tribes and holds an estimated 920 million barrels of oil in 3 wells. Oil is Ecuador's main export product. So it says here it delivers almost 500,000 barrels of crude oil each day. Half is delivered to the U.S. So anti-imperialist, huh? I'm starting to doubt that. Paraguay's president, Horacio Cortez, sworn in. So multi-millionaire businessman has been sworn in as the president of Paraguay, center-right Colorado Party. Promised to wage war on poverty. I'm not in politics to make a career of it or to become wealthier, says Paraguay's richest man. Seeing his cabinet, he broke with the established tradition of naming senior party members to key posts, instead choosing technocrats and business people. So, and Maduro in Venezuela, they're having a pretty hard time down there. So, and with the protests that were happening in Brazil, it's pretty unstable down there. Republican Party on Hillary. If the world is ever going to be saved, women are going to do it. And they talked about how all these websites are popping up for Hillary, right? 2016 or whatever. Clinton's rent Republican donors 11 million Hamptons mansion. So more change on tap for 2016. Clinton's rented $11 million Hamptons mansion owned by a wealthy Republican donor for the summer. So they're expected at the 6-bedroom property owned by Michael Saperstein at the end of the week. Former senior managing director at Bear Stearns. Says here he's listed as Republican donor, gave $15,000 to Mitt Romney's failed presidential campaign. I still think they want to get the first female president or the first homosexual or transgender. And then you have this guy coming out of kind of getting groomed too for possible presidential campaign. Julian Assange. Says Rand Paul libertarians only hope for the future. So he praises Matt Drudge for breaking media censorship. So when I see this, I just see, wow, just a web of lies and deception, of controlled opposition. Experts say the CIA kept a file on American academic Noam Chomsky because of his criticism of the Vietnam War. Here we go again. Breast implant bombs. Heathrow Airport on high alert over fears that female suicide bombers might hide explosives in breast implants. We've heard about the male bombers sewing explosives inside them. I mean, where do they come up with this stuff? They must really be laughing and joking when they hatch this stuff. From August 2nd, U.S. to global travelers, beware. They urge caution throughout August. So it's all about fear. If you're constantly afraid and in fear, you're more easily controlled. Only 4% survive fatal U.S. plane accidents. Even though plane crashes are on the decline, your chances of surviving the fatal accidents isn't much better. It's like I said too, but the whole thing, I made the argument, I'm not going to go into it, about the parachutes, sort of emergency parachutes on the planes and that, or just give them to the people because they see you basically you're not worth saving. Drone is a dirty word. In this week's drone industry convention in Washington, drone industry gives journalists not so subtle hint: don't use the word drones. Said if you look around here today, you won't see that word. This is GGN. Thank you.